Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Drapers Connects and our first webinar of 2023. My name is Graham Moran, and I am the Associate Editor here at Drapers. For those joining us for the first time, Drapers Connects is our series of digital events and virtual content that aims to connect the industry via Q&A discussions, panel talks, and live webinars such as this. So thank you all for joining us today. If you are watching live, please feel free to ask as many questions as you like via the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to get to answer them throughout and at the end. In partnership with Centric Software, today we will explore sustainability and profitability, and hopefully share insights on how to be both a sustainable and profitable business in today's challenging times. So I'm very, very happy to welcome today's panel. Joining us, we have Sean Pack, who is the Global Sourcing and Sustainability Director at Superdry. Hi, Sean.
Hi there.
We have Jessica Cedar-Wedberg, EVP of Global Sustainability and CSR at Gant. It's a new job title, which I haven't learned off by heart yet.
Yeah, I'm the same person, but with a new title. But yes, I'm happy to see all of you.
And Matthew Betteridge, who is the Regional Director of UK and Nordics at Centric Software. So thank you to today's panel. As I said, today's webinar is in partnership with Centric Software. So we're going to begin with a short intro from Matthew. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Graham, and it's great to be here with everyone today. Thanks for joining. So I'll keep this very, very brief. So first and foremost, Centric Software are a technology company. So we provide a platform that boosts our customers' profitability while supporting their various sustainability initiatives. We have 700 customers globally across retail, fashion, apparel, and the consumer goods industries, 2 of which are joining us today, which is absolutely brilliant in Gant and Superdry. And what our technology does is it provides a single view of product data with real-time actionable insights. And it's first and foremost PLM technology, but we've also expanded our solution stack with planning and pricing, which is really exciting. So what we're essentially trying to do is enable a single source of truth for product information. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you, Matthew. So to give a little bit of an introduction to what we're going to be talking about today, we want to explore the ways of being both sustainable and profitable, and how those two can balance and work together. We're going to be asking, can you do better for the planet and make sustainability progress whilst also producing best-selling products that take care of margins and hit financial targets? So as I like to do, and all 3 of you have been on one of my panels before, I like to start with quite a big question just to kind of get us chatting. So the big question I want to ask is, does sustainability have to impact profitability? Can you, and how do you do both? And what is your approach? What is your business approach to the balance of the 2? Jessica, why don't we start with you?
I would like to say that it can't be profitable without sustainability, because then you have missed someone at the table, and of course that is the planet and all the biodiversity and all the people, and they also need to be part of that. So of course, without sustainability we can't be profitable. And for us at Gant, we say that sustainability is a foundation for our current and future business, and that is also, of course, where we want to continue to be profitable. We are profitable and we will continue to be that. So I don't see that they clash together. I see them as it's looking at it from a different perspective. And we also need to ask ourselves, what is profitable? So I mean, in that sense, yes, it's making money, but you also need to take into account all of the other things that you also are looking at here. The cost of things that we today take for free will cost more money in the future. And of course, this you need to balance out and take, like, everything to do with sustainability is about planning, looking long term and acting short term, and also making sure you make a conscious choice, because nothing here is simple, but it's still doable. and it's fun. So yeah, we like a challenge. So bring it on. And yes, we see that it's profitable and sustainable.
Excellent. Thank you, Jessica. Sean, what about you?
Yeah, no, they were great insights from Jessica. I think, yeah, it is a tough question. And look, you could say being a sustainable business can look at both ways, can't it? How you turn up to your consumers with your product and how you approach those. And also, to be sustainable as a business, you need to make profit. So I know it's a question many businesses are facing at the moment. I mean, we started our journey 3 years ago, and I think you have to have that intent. We've listened to our consumers. I don't think it will be an option. You know, you've almost have to have a rite of passage now to even turn up to the consumer. I think consumer sentiment towards sustainability has not only increased, it's an expectation now. So it will become the new norm. And I think we also, as global businesses, have a moral responsibility to do what we can to reduce our impact. So this was a decision we made, first of all, is like, how do we want to represent our brand to the consumer? It's doing the right thing for them, for our own colleagues, all of our supply chain. And then you say, you're right there, Graham, is that we then say, how do we make profit out of it? And how do we do it in the most cost-effective way? So we've had that, and I think it's ongoing. I think, you know, we know it's a very turbulent market at the moment. It's probably going to get worse in the short term. So we have to make really informed decisions and make sure we're doing the right thing each time.
Matthew, your opinion?
Yeah, I think made some excellent points there. And I think for us, we believe that predicting demand is key, and not overproducing is so crucial for brands' sustainability and profitability. So reducing bloated orders of products that won't sell, you know, ultimately this will either lead to heavy discounting, which is going to affect profitability, or in the worst case, they end up in landfill, which is, of course, must be avoided at all costs. So perhaps when creating a product, the first question that should be asked is, how many customers will actually want this? And then how do you find the answer to that question? And for us, it lies in the data. So where is this data? And then is accurate? If that data is dispersed across multiple different systems and there are multiple iterations across the different teams, across the value chain, then we can reasonably assume that it's not going to be easy to find that data and it won't be reliable. So then you're making an already complex process around sustainability even more challenging if you don't have your data in order. So that's what it comes back to for us, really being the masters of your data and getting that under control.
Okay.
Can I add something there, Graham? Because what you're doing at the same time as well with Drapers and is also that you're educating all of us. And the same thing goes for whenever we're using Matthew's systems within Gant. We need to educate everybody about what to take out of that. I mean, the more data I can have, the better and more happy I am, and the better like decisions I can make. But we need to educate each other on that. And that's also why I can learn from Sean and learn from everybody within the industry. How are they using the data? And that's also why it's so important that you're highlighting this and telling like, okay, what to do, how to make it more profitable, and also look at this from all the different perspectives. So I think that that's also a key thing. It's a never stop learning session for all of us, because otherwise what we learned was profitable yesterday might not be tomorrow, or vice versa. What wasn't profitable yesterday is today. So you can't stop. You have to keep moving all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something we've spoken about in the past, that this sustainability isn't a destination, it's a journey, and you can never be, will anyone ever be fully sustainable? Like, is that even possible? That's a whole other, we can do a whole other webinar on that. So let's not get too sidetracked. I wanted to ask, when we were preparing this, we talked about success and, you know, as a business, and, you know, I used to interview a lot of businesses, and the first question I would always ask about product was, what's your best seller? And that was sort of how lots of people measured success, was these are our best sellers, this is sold out, this, you know, this sell-through is great. But I wanted to ask, how do you define a successful product today? Because obviously you all work in the sustainability space, so a product that is very sustainable is a success for you. But if it doesn't sell, is it a success? You know, how do you design and define what is a successful product today? Who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to come in on that one if that's okay. I think, yeah, I mean, look, over the last few years, I think we've all had to reassess our businesses, you know, through COVID. And you've got to look at things in a positive way. You know, we know it's been challenging. And then some of the things we've refocused on is totally on the consumer. So the consumer shopping habits have changed. We know that newness works really well for us. We want to keep engaging them in, you know, especially coming out of COVID, is everyone was like, right, I need to refresh my wardrobe. You know, I've been hanging around in joggers and sweats for the last couple of years, and we now need to get out. So it's been a great rebirth of fashion. But I think it's been a great rebirth of people buying and thinking more consciously. So we've learned loads on, you know, when they come out, they want amazing product. They want it built to last. You know, I think people are really conscious now of buying good quality product. They want to look amazing in it, so fit and quality are really important. And we always go, then it's that kiss note, isn't it? It's that little bit of love at the end that actually this is made with organic cotton, or this is made with a lower impact recycled material. And we've seen that focus to us is, you know, whenever we've launched our sustainable collections, we can see that the sales of those outweigh sales of non-sustainable. So these are our old products. So now we've worked through, I think with our latest numbers are over 60% of what we sell are lower impact, and we're buying less. So we've got this whole degrowth concept in the industry now, is what stock do you need to sell through? And as Matthew said, data and understanding that is a massive profit driver. So you're not buying items that are gathering dust in warehouses, and you can make those work through your supply chain as quickly as possible. So there has been for us, all I can say is a massive change on, one is sustainability, where whenever we launch it is successful with the consumer. Two is data, and how we make those decisions is becoming more data-led, not emotional. So we can really, and we do things, you can still test, but test in low volumes, and then buy once you're confident it's going to sell. And also fashion, and bringing that excitement back to our industry is really, really important.
I think that we have done similar things that Sean are talking about, but we have been able to shift to 80% of the collection with low climate impact materials. So that is like, so when you step in, that's already done as a consumer. And then for me, when you asked me the question, I think it was a brilliant question. I still think it is a brilliant question, Graham. So I think that because it made me think, and then what I look upon is to say that a successful product now is a product that has like a long lifetime, and it doesn't have to have only one owner, and like it can have many owners, and it can be like this one, it's from the rent collection, so it can be rented, and then it will be go on to be sold, and then it will be go on and maybe be sold again as a second hand or third hand, and so on. So if that garment has many different lifetimes, then that is a success. Of course, also made with a sustainably sourced material and all the other things that has to do with social and audits and suppliers and all of those things. But I think that looking on what is a success product, you need to think in a new way than you did before. Did it sell out or not? Yes, it should sell out, but it also should have a possibility to come back into the system and have a second, third, fourth life. And that I want to do like a seamless experience for the consumer, because it is all about the consumers, as you're saying. It is a consumer-centric way of doing it. But again, you need the data to know what are the consumers, who is the consumer, what do they want, and so on and so on. Because we are also all living in a world where you're buying with your eyes, with your hands, and you want to do that. And that you need like to have like the data and like the personal touch and feel of the great, fantastic designers we have in the office as well. And you need the great consumers as well, who are smart enough. And they are, all of them, even the ones that buy for the first time or the ones that buy the third secondhand thing or rent. they are all very smart in the way that they are chosen to go for something that has the durability and also like having that longevity and is a classic.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. I wanted to get a little bit more, obviously I always start with this kind of big broad question to kind of set the context of our discussion, but I wanted to ask, obviously both businesses, Gant and Superdry, are kind of on their sustainable journeys, but I wondered if at some point along the way, or I'm presuming at some point along the way, there must have been kind of a difficult trade-off between following kind of your lower impact aims and also, you know, your kind of business aims. So for example, Sean mentioned organic cotton. So at some point, organic cotton may have been more expensive. So you kind of have to work out, okay, how are we going to make this work? So I wondered if you had any advice or any tips on how you have sort of balanced those two if you have ever come across like a difficult situation or a roadblock or a price increase, or you know, it extends lead times or something like that. Any kind of tips and tricks for our audience?
Can I go first this time? So I mean, of course, we all know there isn't enough organic cotton, and so the cotton prices keep going up. We're at 10% organic cotton right now for Gant and the collections. That's not enough. We want to do more, but the prices really skyrocketed. But the good thing is that when you have like a collection and you're looking at something, for instance, like a shirt, you have like that category, and then you have like a budget for that. So it's like I do at home with food. I have a budget for the week. Monday to Thursday, I eat like simple, good food, but with maybe not as expensive raw material. And then I have enough saved for Friday to Sunday to really spend. That still is the same within our industry and for Gant at our place. So for the shirt team, they have this goal to have, this is the budget you need to meet, but they can play around with that. So one shirt can be more expensive on the raw material to meet, still have the sustainability goals and aims, but still then you have other products that you still can make the like, still have sustainability, but not to the highest end, but still better than conventional, because we no longer use any conventional cotton. We're not sourcing that any longer. We met that target in 2022. So that is still how you do it, but it also takes planning, a lot of planning and very tight work together. And again, back to Matthew, numbers, statistics, and you need to know that. So that's how we have done it. And that is not me planning that, that's together with all the other teams. So it needs to be a teamwork together, and you need a clear plan. This is the budget, this is what you need to keep, but you have the flexibility within the budget. So that's how we have done it when it comes to cotton. And then when we're looking at like more circular business models, it's more a way of trying out things, and then I don't have to be profitable in the sense that normal, like you have to make even or whatever or make a profit. We look at it in a different way, so that's still something we want to do.
Sean, I know when we've been speaking in the past, some of your sustainability initiatives or lower impact initiatives have actually saved money, and that's how you've been able to do other things. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's always that trade-off, isn't it? So there are things, I think Jessica and Matthew said, are where we can use data and improve our planet. So, you know, a massive guilty secret of our industry is that we air freight products around to get it to locations quicker. That is a massive carbon burn. So one of the first things we did, we were at 11% air freighted goods. And I think the industry average stated is about 17, which is unbelievable, really. So we've worked across the last few years, and this year, you know, we're down to 0.5%. So we only bring in a fraction of our products, and that has meant some difficult conversations. You know, sometimes maybe, you know, we plan better. Sometimes we just say, no, we don't want to air freight it. It's not the right decision. Now that saves us many, many millions of pounds. So we have that in one hand. We looked at things like, you know, your stores, LED lighting. You know, sustainability can't just be product focused. We know when we convert our stores over to LED, they pay back for the cost of the install within 12 months now, especially with the high energy prices. Then that's a saving going forward. So by the end of this year, I think 80% of our whole estate, warehouses, head offices and stores will be converted to LED. The idea is next year we'll complete that. Well, that saves us a few £1 million in actually energy costs a year, as well as doing the right thing and reducing our consumption. And that enables us then to say, right, we want to go and train enough farmers to make all of our cotton, because as Jessica said, there are not enough organic cotton farmers in the world. As a responsible brand, we have to take that we're part of the problem. So we're training 20,000 farmers, which will produce enough cotton for what we require. We don't just do that, we then work with these farmers to move that into our supply chain. So 40% of our ranges now use organic cotton, which is amazing, so we're a massive cotton brand. So this was what's important to us. And I think the last thing I'll just add on this, if I may, is we do also sell a lot of jackets. And I think just my learning and advice to people listening is get out there and do it yourself. Try and cut out the middleman, because all you're doing is paying for them to push paper around and try and get yourself in the chain. We work directly with our farmers, and we put our own direct manufacturers in touch with those farmers so that we can cut out all the middleman. And we do the same. We recycle now all of our jacket fills, because literally we go out on planes to the recycling plants in China. I've done that myself. And you stand there after lorry of used plastic bottles being dumped into these places. And we stood there and we were thinking about doing a collection with recycled fill. And we stood there going, that isn't going to make any impact whatsoever. So we left there and actually said, let's change all of the fill in our jackets to recycled. And that sort of movement, I think we're using something like we're recycling 50 million plastic bottles into our jackets. So all I say is any brand, anyone listening, think of what's important to your brand and be disruptive, do something different, because it will drive change if we all do it.
Can I add, because I think it's important to say, LED lights and using recycled material, those are still very low-hanging fruits. It might need a change within the system, but they're still low-hanging fruits. Taking down air freight, the highest we have had is 6%, but it's still it's way too high. But we also need to it's a balance here all the time. But I think that this is where the low-hanging fruit should be picked and also implemented. And then you still need to think about the things that are even harder and need more innovation and need more push, like you're doing with the farmers and stuff like that. But again, it's something where we all need to work together. And also, again, it needs data to know how much cotton are you using. How do you change this? How do you keep track of? Because for me, it's also important when we're doing something with a more sustainably sourced material or with something that is more innovative in the wash of a jeans or whatever it is, it still needs to meet the quality. And it also needs a third-party validation, because I cannot go around saying, oh, I think that this is sustainable, or I like this one, or Graham told me that this would be good. You need someone else to tell you that, and someone else that is credible for that. And then I think that when it comes to changing materials, when it comes to saving energy and changing the transports, those are all kind of already out there, so you could already depict them. When it comes to the circular business models, those are still, if you're going back to Graham's question, profitable or not profitable. That is a bigger challenge within those, because those are still emerging. And what we see right now is many of the rental things, we rent directly from store, but many of the rental people out there that have had services are going under, because this is still a balance of how to do it. And I think that this is also where we need to be braver and invest more as brands to help these kind of emerging businesses to grow, because there are consumers out there, but we all also need to help them and understand that when you're making a choice on what you want to wear, you shouldn't need to think about everything. It's not their responsibility, it's ours. And we need to take that on. But again, it comes back then to, do you want to take that and run with it? and become better and better, because none of us are perfect yet. We still needs to be much better.
Yeah, Jessica, I totally agree. And just an offer to anyone listening in, if ever you need any on this low-hanging fruit, like, you know, the payback periods of LED, if you want to start supporting farmers to convert to organic, we have done a lot of the heavy lifting here, and I'm sure, Jessica, you would say the same. And
Yes.
if you do want to take that journey, any advice, please call out, because, you know, sustainability is an industry-wide problem, not a specific problem to any individual. So anything that we can do to support, the offer is always open.
Yeah, just quickly from my part, among the many great points you both just made there, that last one is so important. Shifting from the mindset, the traditional mindset in business of wanting to have a competitive edge and perhaps keeping things to yourself to get that edge. It's so important that we share this information. We are all in this together, and shifting from that old worldview to this new one is still going to take time. But even having discussions like we're having today is the first step. And it's just so great to hear that there's already collaboration happening.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the important thing here is, I'm sure we've all had to take that journey and think about the data to support it. We've had to done a lot of mapping work with I'll give a free call out to them, the HIG industry, because that, from what we've seen, has been at least the best way that we can quantify what we think is true. Ultimately, we buy and sell goods. We have to say we're not sustainable. All we can do, this whole industry, is lower its impact. There is a requirement that we're all expected to wear clothes. And we can't all walk around naked. And so in which case, we have to have the option to buy clothes, and we can just lower our impact. We've seen some massive statements, and I love what Jessica's talked about reuse, recycle as well. You know, there's lots of opportunities for us in the market.
Yeah. I just saw, thank you again for, it's the first time I'm saying it. Thank you to the audience members who have sent in questions. And if you have any more, do send them in. I just spotted one that kind of interested me. So this might throw us off on a tangent, but one thing about this space is that it's new and it's evolving, and where, you know, you might be using a fabric for the very first time, a new fabric or a new, you know, it's a lot of test and learn, I guess. And these collaborations that you speak about, you know, giving rental a try, giving resale a try, etc. is, I know, Jessica, you said you have to take risks, but is it quite risky to take risks, if that makes sense? How do you persuade your business to kind of come along with you on those risks?
With numbers and data and passion. No, but it is a combination about that. So I think it's important to say, like, we have like lifelong repair on jeans, for instance. And of course, when I came with that the first time to the finance director, was like, no, that's not doable. Again, there were other companies doing it, so I could show that, okay, look at this, they are doing it, it works. And of course, then you just need to tweak on those numbers and listen and present them and be prepared to answer, and think like, what kind of questions do they want to ask? And again, when and how does it mean that it's profitable or not? So you need to challenge that all the time. But you also need that open dialogue to really like say, and you have to have guts. So that's also like, I wouldn't be here unless we were really on this together, all of the business, like everybody from top to bottom is along on this ride, because it's not a one person job. It is something for the whole team to work together on. And that's also why it's fun. Again, it's super challenging, and we have to remember, we have a very limited amount of time to make the changes enough for us to still have a fantastic planet to live on for everybody, including the people and also the biodiversity and all the animals and everything. So we need to do that fast, and to become better faster, you need to cooperate with others, because we don't have all the bright ideas. We need to borrow them from others, tweak them, and put them into Gant, and then work with them.
I was just, I totally agree. One of the things when we set out this journey, look, no one can afford to have massive departments of people going around. So it's this sort of, the first 18 months of our journey, we we just said, let's just do it internally first. We're not going to greenwash. We're not going to go outside and start even talking to the consumers until we could look in the mirror and feel like we're doing the right thing. So I might have mentioned this before if I've been on different things, but I'm so proud. We set up what we call the Sustainability Warriors, which are our like internal activists. And they're not paid that's not their role. They're embedded all around our business. We have 60 now, but they are a voice from logistics to our store, to our store operational teams, to people in stores who feed back all the time with recommendations on change. And we could never have implemented the speed of change that we have without of their support, because you just don't see every problem around the business. If you want to be sustainable, as we say, lowering impact in every area of your business is fundamental, I think, for that journey. So I just think any brands or retailers starting that journey, engage your colleagues first. You will be amazed at the knowledge, passion, and determination that they bring to you. And that is probably my proudest moment, is every time I think and talk about the Warriors, it just makes me smile. And all it is a monthly call we have with them. We're looking at other ideas, and some of them are a bit Willy Wonka, but it's all fun, and you can make sustainability fun, and you can sort of do that.
I think it's also important to remember, I mean, there was a time where all the sustainability managers and EVPs or whatever say that their main goal is to make themselves out of a job. I never believed in that, because you need someone to guide and steer what direction are you going and take the tough decisions. So I still believe that you need someone to do that job, and I can't see that going away. But I also believe that you need all the teams to be involved. So you can have a small team, but you need to be a big team. So when I say how many we are working at Gant, because I saw a question about that, in the small Gant sustainability team, we are 4, but we are 2,500 people working with sustainability at Gant. And it would never work without the other 2,500. And we have the help of our partners, our suppliers, including then Matthew and his team, to help us to do this journey. Because again, it doesn't work unless you have this kind of like, you need to know where you're going, you need to set up. And I also saw there was another question about what is sustainability? Well, sustainability is everything. So that's the great thing. We can talk about HR, we can talk about the planet, water, climate, circularity, and whatever. You need to have a plan for everything. We have 7 different strategies that are like, this is the plan we're going, this is how we measure, this is how far we come, and how we need to improve all the time. So I think this is again where it's not black and white, it's all the colors you need, and you need to look at the different nuances. And Graham, I know that you talked about that before, like the transformation that is happening, and you have seen it because you worked for such a long time. So it's again great, but then you also can look at what is driving this change. And I think consumers is one thing, but there is also like the legislation is also driving this.
Yeah. Well, that's something I was going to come on to, but we can discuss it now, I guess. We've talked about the this kind of sustainability progress and goals and targets and changes being like the new norm, or no longer nice to have, but soon it's going to be you have to have, and you're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to report a lot more and be a lot more transparent about where things are made, how things are made, fabrics, etc. There's different bills coming in different countries. If you operate in France, I think one of them has just come into force this January. So obviously that is going to impact how you work and how you operate, and maybe even force you to make big changes that you weren't planning. So that could impact profitability, to bring it back to the topic. Does anyone have any thoughts on that, or any advice on how you're kind of tackling these new rules and legislation?
Yeah, I mean, I can start off with this one if you like. I think first of all, I think we know that there's been a lot of greenwashing, and I think any sort of better guidance on how we all communicate and act, I think is really important. So we're quite a supporter. And then I suppose it's like you're talking about it, we as a global brand, we sell in France, and they're bringing out better guidance on every garment you sell now has to have special labeling on every element of it, which means how you dispose of that garment, in a sensible way. So we're not putting it into landfill. Now, that's great in one, as long as then Germany doesn't come out with a different set of legislation and Spain comes out. And what we all need to do is sort of have one global trademark almost for sustainability and how you dispose of products. That's our only concern, because I'm probably a lot of people on the call have had the same challenge. We've had to change all of our packaging to include these new symbols. And I don't know whether Jessica's had this challenge as well. Yeah. And also then we've got the current issue that from the early March, in theory, all your garments in store should have that packaging, in which case you've still got obviously older stock. Yeah. And it wouldn't be very sustainable to start taking that away, to relabel it, to sell it again. So we're hoping the French authorities will use a little bit of common sense on this. So yeah, I think anything, but we've got TCFD now, the green code. My advice is, as we always say, if we're not 100% confident, don't talk about it and just do the right thing. It hasn't always got to be a marketing thing. We try to keep the marketing actually quite low, and we just try to engage and communicate the changes we're making. Just do it in a subtle way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things, I used to work for the Swedish government for 8 years at the Swedish EPA, and I mean, one of the key things is that you need longer term plan when you have a business. I mean, we plan everything for at least, I know exactly what to do up to 2025, and I knew that already in 2018, because that's so for French legislation to come when there's less than, I mean, they came out with this when it was 3 months left to go live. That's so late. That's crazy late. And to not use that in a good way, the power that they have is super annoying, I would say, but it is what it is, and we all need to comply. But I would like to say, back to your thing, legislation is a great thing because it pushes all of us forward. So as a base, legislation is fantastic and fine, but you also then need better planning, and you need to look at it, because all of this, I mean, in French here we have the Trimon logo, but also the product environmental footprint that is coming within the EU. That gives us, we need so much more data, and of course we collect the data, and that's also not an easy task to ask all the suppliers. Again, SAC is a very great place to have everything because everybody can share, but there isn't the same thing when it comes to the product environmental footprint, and here you need to know a lot more things that we normally didn't ask about before. But then, rather than saying, oh no, that's a very oh, we have to do it, it's such a hassle, look at it. Okay, look, all of this new data, what do we do with that? How can that make us move faster forward to say okay, it's great now that we have that. What more decisions can we make and use out of this data? Because that's the reality. We all have this now. And then you can say, I mean, product environmental footprint is still not obligatory. We're still doing it. We're still going ahead with it because it's so good for us to do it, because we learn so much on the way. And again, it comes back to, yes, it is a hassle to gather all the data. And yes, we need better systems, Matthew. So, I mean, that's still what we need to do. But it's also important to say that legislation is a great way of pushing us forward, but it's a hazard when they can't talk to each other and have the same in France, Italy, Sweden, US, and so on. And also, especially when they're now forcing very, very rapid on you have 3 months to go. It's not doable for us. And again, it comes back to the consumers who still needs to understand, what does this mean? And because some of the legislation, to be very honest, it's not consumer friendly the way it will be shown and how they are supposed to do things. If you have a product with 3 different Trimons logos that you need to, this should be recycled like that and that and that. I think this is also where we need to push back sometimes and say that you need to think maybe just a teensy tiny bit longer to have it more adapted to the reality. but it's here now. We're doing the best with it. We learned a lot, still have a lot to learn.
I think they're great points, Jessica, as always. And I just think also we have to hold ourselves accountable. Legislation should be enforcing the good practices we're already doing. And one of the things that we've done over the last 12 months is for the last 3 years, we've been measuring our full scope 1, 2, and 3. And that is so important to classify yourself. You're on a sustainable journey. We've got to align ourselves with the Paris Agreement. So any businesses, any people listening in, I would suggest getting that done. It needs to be third party. It doesn't cost a fortune, but it really gives you a good footprint and of where your business is burning excessive carbon. And we're now in the process of agreeing our science-based target pathway. So this is where you do hold your hand up and you go, right, I mean, we've worked out we need to reduce our overall scope 1, 2, and 3 carbon by 4% each year to follow the Paris Agreement. Then that's great, as Jessica said, to hold yourself accountable, work with all areas of the business to go, and we've got to think differently and start reducing our carbon. And it really holds you to account. So the more things you can do that you can say, let's measure it, let's review it, and let's address it, in whichever form you can do that, I would recommend to everyone, because the more data you have, whether it's through Centric or other areas of your business, you can use that to make really informed decisions. And I know it's so baffling, isn't it? Sustainability, everyone says, what does sustainability mean? I was just looking at the questions. You have to hold yourselves to account. Ultimately, it's how much carbon you are releasing as a business in everything that you do. And your scope 3 includes obviously all your manufacturing, how you move it, how you do everything. So then you can
the end of life. Don't forget that,
yeah,
because end of life is also important. And there were questions here about like returns for e-commerce and all of those things. Of course, we have a plan and we have a way of working to make sure that the products have the longest lifetime possible, and we have an end of life partner, because as Matthew said, and as Graham also, and I know we all agree on, it shouldn't end up on a landfill, because that's kind of like absolutely. So you need to work according to the EU waste hierarchy in everything you do. But going back to your first question, Graham, or one of the first questions that you had, profitability and also what is a success product? I mean, we're talking about science-based targets. So maybe in the future, it will be defined as something that keeps within the planetary boundaries, not just climate, because I mean, it's great to talk about climate, and that's super important, but we also have biodiversity, we also have water, we also have all the others as well. So, and we can't also forget the people. So I think that respecting all of those things, that's also what will make a product that is a success. And we're not there yet, but we're absolutely doing the best we can. So I think it's a very smart question, and I really like you to continue to ask that one over and over again over the years, because I'm guessing you will have new answers every time.
Yes, I think we will, and that's what makes it exciting and the progress interesting. We have a lot of questions from the audience, so I want to try and get to as many of them as we can, but I did want to sort of try and bring together everything that we've said. And I think a lot of what we've discussed in terms of this balance of sustainability and profitability is kind of working smarter and being more, making decisions based on it. I guess it goes back to everyone's touched on, like less waste, knowing how much things are going to cost before you make them and how many you actually need, like what's the demand. How, in any ways, do you think you are working smarter? And do you have any advice for the people? There's a lot of questions around specific data that you are using to help inform these decisions. Do you have any advice on that kind of things that you really value and you really are really helpful? Or anything around that sort of to sum us up and to finish us off before we go on to the audience.
I think just one, if I may lead on this, is one of the things we have done, and through PLM to us through Centric, obviously it's a well-established tool in our business, and one of the things we have done is reassess how we attribute everything, because it's about what are the important decisions you need to make based around that product. So sustainability, for instance, if we can load it into one system and then we can share that to every other system. So PLM's our master system for all product attributes, and then that can feed into whether it's your website to share information about sustainability to the consumer. It can share into when you're making buying decisions on how much stock you buy of that particular product. So the more things you can get in would be my advice is, and think about what's important to what you need data for to make a decision. Data's great as long as it helps you make a decision. You can get obsessed with data sometimes, have so much data that you sort of get lost in the weeds. So I'd just be a little bit careful. We've had a reassessment. We were all attributing everything known to man, which probably takes a lot of resource and man hours. And now we've simplified it down and can make better informed decisions from it.
I do it in a simpler way. I say from dirt to shirt and beyond. And everything that I need from dirt to shirt and beyond, I need data for to make conscious decisions all the way. And I need to know, based on data, what are the bigger decisions and the smaller decisions. Because going back again to what this whole seminar is about, profitability or sustainability, it's not either or, it is both, and they coexist. But sometimes you pay more over here and you save over there. So this is where and sometimes it's the same as when you do, so sustainability is nothing else than what you do with marketing or what you do with anything else. You make priorities, and sometimes you lose money and sometimes you gain money. But it's all about being having a plan, working with it, and also being focused on where you want to get to. I think that the important thing is to remember what we're doing is to make things better, to have a less impact on our planet. That's the whole thing. That's why we're working on this. And not every company in the world are doing that. So that is, again, for all of you out there and for us as well, to say good on us that we're taking the effort and doing it, because we see that is the way forward for continued profitability. I don't see this working without sustainability in the future. It doesn't work today without sustainability. So why would it in the future? So even if tougher times are coming, I'm sure that as all challenges, they also have solutions and opportunities. So we'll take those opportunities on. And I think it's important to look at what happened during the pandemic, where there was so much money put forward to help everybody through the pandemic. If we can make a fraction of that happen to support the survival of everything in the planet the same way, which is now happening. I mean, the race between US and EU is so great. Bring it on. That will help all of us. And it's a race. It's not like, oh, we're having to do this. It's a race now. And that's brilliant for us.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for that. I feel like we could just keep talking and debating this all afternoon, but I'm going to go on to some audience questions. And I'm also going to try and keep these quick. So if we can try and get through as many as we can. So there's been a few kind of similar things. So I'm also going to try and amalgamate a few of the questions. But one I like the look of was people are asking, and I'm adding to this, 2023 is going to be quite a challenging year. We all know that. But quite a few people have been interested to know, do you have a priority? Is there one initiative that you're really focusing on this year? Is there one target you really want to hit, or one change that you really want to make this year? Jessica, why don't we start with you?
I have 3 targets. One of us is, of course, we have a science-based target. We want it to be approved. We're waiting in line for all the other companies that are still waiting. We have sent it in, but we're waiting. So that one, so continue on the climate journey. We are continuing with the Gant 7 rules and the circular business. That is something to continue with. So doing rent again and doing all of those things, it's super important. And then it is for us the year of biodiversity. It's time to really start on that and do the biodiversity blueprint and make sure that we have not just that. We did the water stress analysis last year. We met the goal of 100% sustainably sourced cotton and so on. So it's time to take on the new thing to become better on. So those are the 3 main areas we have, and still continuing to be a premium brand with premium products. So I'm not letting that go. So that together with all the other focuses.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, I mean, probably we're all on a similar journey. So yeah, we're in the same line. We've submitted our science-based targets, and we want to continue to beat the pathway to lower our impact. Organic cotton, there was a few questions linked to that. Is, you know, we want to continue to educate and disrupt the market, and so there was one question about there's a 3-year period from starting to change your farming methods to being fully registered. That's really tough for the farmers. So we're buying their in conversion cotton to help them on that journey. So that's a big commitment. We want to keep rolling out cotton. It's 70% of what we sell as a brand. And I think the third one, and lots of conversations about recycled. And we're seeing a big move. I really want to focus. I think recycled and this circular economy is a massive focus for our industry. So, for instance, we're the easy one for us was the cutting waste in our factories of cotton. We now recycle it, make it back into yarn with local providers, which we can share as well if people want to take that journey. That's 15 to 20% of the materials you buy you can reuse, and then we spin that back into yarn and use it back in garments. So we're doing that. Recycled fill we've talked about. All of our swimwear board shorts we've swapped to recycled. So we're looking now with our flip-flops. I was saying, why can't we like make recycled flip-flops out of old like used stuff? So I just think recycled for me, anyone out there, we're doing lots of projects on recycled. If anyone else is doing projects on recycled and how we can get those materials back in the supply chain, I'd be a huge ambassador and would love to work with some other brands and retailers. So they're my 3 things. Scope 3, let's get it down. I really think we're still on a journey on organic and making our cotton as sustainable as possible and recycled.
We also did our first cotton in conversion last year, the first small collection with shirts, and I'm super proud. It was the hardest thing we've done in many years, so I say that to everybody out there, because it challenged all the systems and everything internally. But with the help of a fantastic shirt team and the great suppliers and the cotton farmers in India, we managed to make the first, and we're continuing now year 2. So the products will come out this autumn. So yes, it is. We need that because there isn't enough organic cotton grown in the world, but it's an experience journey to do, and you hit many hurdles on the way, so you just need to push.
Yeah. That reminds me of a question that has been asked, which I think is quite interesting. Like Sean, you said flip-flops is an issue. Are there any, maybe some advice you can give to the audience? Are there any categories that are easier, or that you're seeing good progress in, and others where you're kind of getting more headaches? And someone has also asked, are your strategies the same across men's, women's, kids, shoes, etc., or are there kind of different areas that you're focusing on in order to kind of see the biggest wins, I guess?
Yeah, I think at the moment, similar to what Jessica said, we're in the low-hanging fruit. We've always said is, where do we sell a lot of something, whether it's a women's jacket, a men's jacket, whatever it is, and we try to pick those ranges first because we can drive the biggest impact. So we don't have a preference. We want to do ladies and men's there. When we're selling product as well, we don't see any different real like any negatives, but everyone is thinking more sustainably. And as I said, I think I would just suggest there are loads of new innovation fabrics coming out with recycled that we're seeing, and it's just speak to your mills. Also speak to your suppliers, because they might not know that's a top priority to you. The more we engage our suppliers on our journey, the more they give us information and offer us solutions. So I would just, even wherever you are on your journey, keep engaging your supply chain, because there's so much coming through that's exciting, and then pick which ones are important to your brand.
I think also looking at, we are a bio-based company, and 85% of the material we use is renewable because it's bio-based. But that also means that many of the products that we have are monofibers, and that's kind of also where it's easier to change, but also sometimes the prices really go up. So this is also a balance of a mix of something can be where you have a lower price on. I mean, recycled synthetics is really a low price product, and you should be able to switch it out on the most of the things you have, unless you need a specific quality of performance and so on. But then you need to push the industry to become better. And there are still materials out there that can't be shipped, but there are many other options to do better than conventional. That's my rule. I want to do better than conventional. So anything I can change from conventional to something else, I'm happy. It's not perfect, but it's better than conventional, because conventional, we know, is not working for the planet and for everything. So we need to do something that is better. And that might not be perfect the first time or like the best in class, but it is better. So you need that to know. And no, we don't do any differences between men's, women's, and kids, because we're a small company, so we need to do all of the things. We can't prioritize and say. And also, there were many questions about the greenwashing in the questionnaire. And I would say that it's really a balance on how you talk about what you're doing and also do things. We're not perfect, and no one is, but you also need to be very sure that you tackle the big things first, and then you need to continue. So you have to do all of those things at the same time. And when you're cherry picking and only doing the small things, that's where it comes a bit more hard to like stand on that balance that we're all talking about. Because it is a balance of making conscious decisions, but you also need to do the big things first.
Yeah. Can I just ask, there's quite a lot about plastic bottles coming through. So would you mind if I just pick that up? Because if there is, I think, a misconception, and we did quite a lot of work on this when we were looking at plastic bottles. There's a misconception that all plastic bottles get recycled. I think the stat is something like 25% of plastic bottles get recycled. And also, what we've actually set up is, your plastic bag shrouds that you move your garments in, which are essential to stop mold and damp. We recycle those, and we've worked with a UK manufacturer to set up a recycling plant. So we remove them from the garments where possible, especially when they go to stores, and we recycle them. And also, you do need to keep I'm not a chemistry or technical expert, but to make sure that still works, you do also have to add a little bit of virgin into it to keep it being able to recycle, because it does deteriorate over time. So look, I don't think there is a perfect solution in anything that we do. Lots of bottles currently go to landfill. We have to accept that. Lots of plastic. It can be your milk cartons, everything else. There is no perfect solution. So I think every industry needs to use as much recycling as possible rather than virgin. That is ultimately my personal view. People can disagree, but we have done quite a lot of research into it ourselves. Is that there is a lot of bottles out there, and trust me, if you're with me and if you get the opportunity, go to some of the recycling plants, especially in China, and look at the literally mountains of plastic. It brings it home. That's all I can say. That we all need to be responsible for a solution.
Thank you, Sean. There is a lot of questions that we're not going to get to, but I did want to just pick up briefly, because Jessica, you took my next question out of my mouth, was around the greenwashing topic, and also this kind of concept that people are now talking about, which is the opposite, which is like green hushing, where people aren't talking about what they're doing because they're scared of being kind of called out, or being investigated, or doing something wrong. And I think that's, there is this balance between, you want to shout about the progress you're making, but as there's a lot of bad press around in this space, there can be, you also want to be careful with what you say. And I did see quite a lot of questions on that, so I thought that'd be quite a nice one to finish on, because obviously both businesses are making huge progress, and you want to shout about it, but how do you kind of manage that? How do you do it in different channels as well, in store versus online, where you obviously have a lot more space and time to kind of tell the full story?
I don't want to shout about it, because I don't think this is a shouting moment for anyone to do. But that's up to everyone to choose what they want to do. I don't want to shout about it. I want us to be very transparent and clear about what we're doing. And I also want to be proud about what we're doing. So that's kind of like the two driving forces, to be clear and transparent. And for that, you need to be able to back up what you're saying. And then also to be very clear that we're not perfect, and we're absolutely on our way, and we always need to get better. So every time we look at, because also one of the things that we're talking about audits to be done on suppliers and so on, but also we should know that the numbers that Matthew provides us with and that we put in the system, or the system has, then that is also audited by anyone. And an audit is, for me, always a great way to know where you need to become better. It's not a fun reading all the time, but it's always a good thing to look at, like, okay, here we can become better. So I would say that that's kind of like, and again, ask the question. Sean said we also have a lot of like team members, and if they're telling me we need to become better or anything like that, we need to listen to that. And that's also where we need to do, like, be there. Yeah, it's fun to do this work, but you don't need to shout about it. It's like, it's fun, it's rewarding. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jessica. And I think we just want to, we're trying to find the right balance of sharing information so consumers can make informed decisions. And it's really difficult. We see lots of claims by people that, you know, may or may not be true. It's not for me to say, but we always try and just share information. And the more you can put fact on it, like with HIG or other things, and just get a secondary opinion of, is that really beneficial? I think, I would suggest you continue to do. Just try and validate what you believe is true.
Excellent. Well, sadly, that is all we have time for. Thank you all so much for being so honest and open. I think that was a really interesting conversation. So thank you, Jessica, Sean, and Matthew. Thank you to Centric Software, and thank you to everyone who joined us today.
And thank you for the questions.
Bye.
Thank you.
Massive. So thanks everyone for joining. Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Bye bye.